Good day, everyone. I'm Diane Hodiak, Executive Director of 350 Deschutes, and I'd like to welcome the 5th Annual Go Clean Energy Conference. After my announcements, we will start our keynote session on how we get to net negative emissions by 2030 and 100% clean electricity. So first, I'd like to thank our generous volunteers, speakers, moderators, and sponsors that include Pure Light Power, Ledge Capital, Pacific Power, Deschutes County Solid Waste, Energy Trust of Oregon, G5, Neil Kelly, National Car Charging, MindClick, First Interstate Bank, and Republic Services. A special thank you also to our web designer, Amy Perez, and Set in Motion Marketing. Please visit them and honor them with your business when possible by visiting the expo page of the Go Clean Energy Conference. I'd like to remind everyone to make sure to register online for the other panels. And you may do that at gocleanenergy.org. Click on schedule at the top and go to the pages that will bring you directly to the Zoom links. We are also posting that in the chat. The other panels that we have this afternoon are business and government partnerships and sustainability following this session, as well as benefits of managing your power and green multifamily housing. We will have Q&A at the end of our keynote speakers at this panel. And so I politely request that you please put your questions into Q&A, but if you want to make comments in the chat, or if a question ends up in the chat, we'll certainly try to address it if we can. And so next I'd like to segue to Ellie Cohen, who is the CEO of the Climate Center, a dynamic speaker who has spent decades in cross-collaboration with scientists and others working on climate and environment.
Thank you so much. I think so you might have to turn off your sound so there's no feedback. Thank you so much for having me. It is really an honor to be with you all today. I hope one day to meet you in person. So thanks again for having me. I'm speaking today about tipping points, accelerating equitable action for a climate safe future. I'm CEO of the Climate Center. Our mission is speed and scale greenhouse gas reductions, and a great example of our work up until the last couple of years of our success has been the key role that we have played in California in the phenomenal growth of community choice energy managed by local governments instead of investor-owned utilities. And there are now today, just in about 7 years, 24 CCAs serving 80 to 90% greenhouse gas free electricity to 11 million Californians, or a quarter of the state. A great example of our mission. I'm going to start today highlighting some of the science and the tipping points where we really are today, and then talk about some of the solutions and successes we're having in California, and urge you to adopt and learn from you as well. So to put this in policy perspective, most countries are working towards the goals that were set by the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change in Paris in 2015. And those came also from the United Nations 1.5 degrees Celsius report in October 2018. And they said to get to below 1.5 C warming globally, to really stay below in that what scientists consider the safe zone, we have to cut emissions essentially in half by 2030. And we have to remove upwards of 1 trillion tons of carbon dioxide equivalent from the atmosphere. The problem is that as bold as that goal is, the United Nations operates by consensus. So the goals are inherently conservative and not enough. We have to do more. Shortly after that 2018 report came out, this came out in Nature, and basically concluding that global warming is going to happen a lot faster than most of us think, and that we will pass this 1.5 C dangerous threshold of warming by 2030, 10 years earlier than the United Nations projected. In fact, the United Nations head said just a couple of weeks ago that it's code red for humanity based on the new science that has come out, and that this new report from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change really must sound a death knell for coal and fossil fuels before they destroy our planet. And as you all know, we've had all kinds of extreme events in the past few months, some extremes beyond any projection of climate models, so that these climate models are not even incorporating what we're seeing today. Many scientists acknowledging that we have done something to the climate system that has exacerbated it to a degree that wasn't expected to happen until 2040, 2060, and even the end of the century. We've seen a record surge of methane emissions in the past decade, which could be part of the cause for the accelerated impacts that we're seeing. And as you all know, methane is a very powerful warming agent. The majority of the increase globally is due to fracking in North America. So we have a clear solution here, which is we need to stop using natural gas, and we need to close down these the whole production process where all these leaks are occurring. In the Western US, we are now in a global warming induced severe megadrought. If you look over the last 1,200 years at tree rings and lake cores, you see that the 20th century was probably the wettest on record. So it really means that during the time for us in California, where we went from maybe 2 million people to 40 million, that it was an anomaly. And now we're experiencing a more natural pattern of multi-decadal drought, but you put climate change on top of it and it becomes really severe. Some scientists say that we will pass the 1.5 C threshold in California as early as 2027, and that most of the crops that we grow today will not be able to be grown unless we take some actions for securing more water. Of course, there's increasing health impacts. New studies showing that fossil fuel air pollution kills 8 million people globally every year. The 2020 smoke storm we had here in California last fall is estimated to have killed 3,000 people over 65, specifically because of the extra particulate matter in the atmosphere. And we know that every single day, over 7 million Californians are exposed to ongoing toxic releases from oil and gas wells in their neighborhoods. They live within 1 mile of them. Another warning came out just a few weeks ago from medical journals across the world that no temperature rise is safe, and rapidly warming climate is the greatest threat to the public health. From an economic viewpoint, climate action delay will cost much, much more and bankrupting our economy. It costs much less to invest big time today than waiting until 2030. A good example of this is the California wildfires in 2018 cost $150 billion in all aspects. This is a study from UC Davis, and that's about 2/3 of the annual budget in California. We have a lot more to do. We must invest today to make a difference. And about, I think it was in 2010, some scientists identified 15 tipping points that would indicate that we are moving quickly towards an uninhabitable hothouse climate if we don't act soon. Sadly, they published just last year a study showing that we have already activated 9 of 15 of those global tipping points much sooner than expected. We're seeing the slowing down of the Gulf current in the Atlantic. We're seeing dramatically faster melting of ice off of Greenland. We're seeing the rapid melt of permafrost across the Arctic. We're seeing a drying out of the Amazon, allowing fires to happen even more so than already being initiated by people there, and so on and so forth. And all these are connected, these global tipping points. One of the lead authors of that said, "We have underestimated the risks of unleashing irreversible change. We're already seeing strong evidence for declaring a state of planetary emergency. The next decade is our window, with consequences for all future generations." And I want to add here another study that came out, and they concluded that humanity is causing a rapid loss of biodiversity, and with it, Earth's ability to support complex life. But the mainstream is having difficulty grasping the magnitude of this loss, despite the steady erosion of the fabric of human civilization. We have to remember that in all of our climate work, we need healthy ecosystems to regulate the climate and to provide clean air and water and food and many other things that we rely on for a healthy life on our planet today. So I ask you all, is carbon neutrality or net zero emissions enough? I can hear you. I can hear you. And I hear you all saying no. And you hear lots of companies today talking about, we're going to get to net zero by 2050. Is it enough? No way. It just isn't enough for what we're actually experiencing. And net zero isn't enough. We really have to get to net negative emissions. So our current goals, I just made this slide for this talk here in Oregon and California. There's been some great progress, but is it enough? Can we wait to get to 80% below 1990 levels of emissions until 2050? In California, we only have a 60% clean electricity goal by 2030. Can we wait until 2040 to get to 100% or 2045? I don't think so. The climate reality is outpacing our policies. We do have some leaders stepping up. The European Union announced about 10 months ago that they would cut greenhouse gases by at least 55% by 2030 from 1990 levels. The United Kingdom, under Conservative leader Boris Johnson, announced that they would cut greenhouse gas emissions 68% by 2030 from 1990 levels. They are committed to 100% zero emission vehicle sales by 2030 and 100% clean electricity by 2035. Rhode Island, 100% greenhouse gas free electricity by 2030. And of course, President Biden's plan, depending on what happens over the next couple of weeks, is to cut greenhouse gas emissions 50% below 2005 by 2030, 100% greenhouse gas free electricity by 2035, with 40% of those investments going to lower income communities. We hope we'll get there, but the bottom line is bold targets really work. For example, with California, as goes California goes the world. In 2002, we had the first tailpipe emissions law that then was adopted by 13 states and became the basis for the National Clean Car Standards. In 2017, we passed the first 100% carbon-free electricity law. Is for 2045, which is too late, but after that, 10 other states adopted, and now Oregon as well, not for the same, a little earlier, thankfully. California launched the Under 2 coalition to stay under 2 degrees Celsius in 2017. There are now 220 jurisdictions with 1.3 billion people and 43% of the world economy who have signed on to that. And last fall, Governor Newsom announced here in California that we would allow no further gas vehicle sales after 2035. I think it's too late, but it is still very bold. And since then, General Motors announced that they'll only produce 100% ZEV cars by 2035. Volvo announced by 2030. New York State just announced they'll be doing that by, they just announced it in September, also by 2035. We think we can do it sooner, but these bold targets work and they catalyze other action. The nation and the world are looking to California, to Oregon. They're looking to all of us to lead for a climate safe future. We know we need more aggressive, equitable policies and accelerated timelines. Here in California, we launched 2 years ago what we call our Climate Safe California campaign for rapid decarbonization. Our vision is that by 2025, California will have enacted the full suite of policies required by science to dramatically cut emissions, start drawdown, and secure resilient communities for all by 2030, inspiring global action. So what does that really mean? Our current goals for 2045 are too late. It means achieving net negative emissions where we remove more climate pollution from the atmosphere that we already put out there than we are currently emitting. And to do that, we believe we have to get to 80% below 1990 levels by 2030. And we have to pair that with a massive increase in investments in nature-based sequestration on working lands, agricultural lands, as well as riparian habitat and other areas so that we can be sequestering over 100 million metric tons per year. Here's another view of that, a pathway to net negative emissions. On the left side, it shows California's 2020 emissions by the main categories we measure. I will share these slides with you so that you can take a look at them, and you can write to me at ellie@theclimatecenter.org, and I'm happy to provide them to you as well. This is what we can get to. We've shown it with the science. What it really requires is the political will. It's a huge lift, no doubt about it, but we have the technology and know-how today to achieve this. Again, here's reductions by sector, matched by sequestration, getting to net negative emissions by 2030. We have 3 guiding principles for our work. One is that it has to be based on the latest science. 2, we have to ensure a just transition for fossil fuel workers, their families, and their communities. And 3, we prioritize climate justice, which we believe is racial justice, and ensure that low-income communities of color are no longer disproportionately harmed by fossil fuels, and that these communities have equal access to climate solutions. The kinds of policies we're talking about: accelerating the phase out of fossil fuel development, production, and use. That means shutting down those wells that are in people's neighborhoods. It means cleaning up our electricity sector. It means transitioning away from gas-powered vehicles of all kinds to electric vehicles. It means getting more people out of their cars. It means electrifying buildings. Second, scaling up nature-based sequestration to 100 million metric tons per year. Third, investing in community resilience, including clean energy, microgrids, and storage, so that we are more resilient to planned and unplanned outages, of which we've had a lot over the last few years, with huge impacts for human health as well as community economics. And last, we need to fund climate action at the scale needed. Here in California, we just recently had a surplus. We're getting funds from the federal government under President Biden. We just allocated $15 billion to resilience over 3 years. As great as that is, it is not enough. We need to do more. We need to identify multiple sources of funding and leverage funding from the private sector to ensure that we can pay for all of this. Again, it will be cheaper, but we need the funds now. I do want to take a second just to share. A lot of people ask about this and think, well, why don't we do more carbon capture and storage or direct air capture? We push nature-based sequestration because you get multiple benefits from it, not only sequestering more carbon, but holding more water in the soil, replenishing groundwater, supporting biodiversity, supporting food security. Carbon capture and storage is removal of carbon dioxide pollution at the point source, at the smokestack, at power plants and industrial sites. And it is a green light for fossil fuel industry to keep moving forward. That is not what we want to do. It's been shown not to work again and again. And for me, we're going to hear more about that from the oil industry and their lobbying to slow down our efforts to move to a clean energy economy. But we always need to say no to carbon capture and storage, CCS. Direct air capture is pulling carbon dioxide past emissions out of the atmosphere through elaborate facilities. They are tiny in scope today, like a drop in the ocean. Perhaps they will be able to be scaled up by the mid-2030s, and we may desperately need them then. And the only way I would support it is if we know they are not going to negatively impact surrounding environment and communities. And then we're left with this incredible option of nature-based solutions. We've destroyed so much soil and habitat around the world. We have incredible potential to sequester carbon with all these other benefits. Our efforts here in California are backed up by the science. We have a paper that came out in March called Accelerating the Timeline for Climate Action in California, and got extensive media coverage on this. And since then, Governor Newsom has ordered our Air Resources Board to evaluate pathways to carbon neutrality and net negative emissions by 2035, 10 years ahead of our current law. We've secured $200 million from the California Public Utilities Commission to invest in microgrids in our most vulnerable communities in the state. We helped pass the first time ever a goal for natural and working land sequestration for 2030 and beyond. Bottom line is, our house is literally on fire, and we have to ask at every level of society and government, are we doing enough? We ask that you endorse Climate Safe California. It's one step in the right direction, and you go to climatesafeca.org. We have 78 elected officials, over 100 businesses. We work closely with businesses across the state, 137 nonprofits, and over 1,000 individuals. It really is a public pledge of support to accelerate aggressive climate policy. As Terry Tamminen, the former Cal EPA secretary under Governor Schwarzenegger, said, I strongly endorse the goal of Climate Safe California to achieve net negative emissions by 2030. 2050 is too late. The campaign's focus on science, urgency, and policy is exactly what's needed, and California must lead the way, and Oregon should too. Our philosophy is that governments and policymakers are like sailboats. They go nowhere without wind. We all are the wind in their sails. One person can make a difference, and working together, we can make an even bigger difference. There are multiple positive tipping points that we're already experiencing with this growing youth movement. The United Kingdom is decarbonizing its electricity faster than any other major economy. And we just heard from Norway that electric vehicles are now 80% of all new cars sold today. And there's more good news. Solar is now the cheapest electricity globally. Exxon, who would have thought this even possible 5 years ago? Exxon is no longer on the Dow, and we are likely past peak oil production. Royal Dutch Shell has been ordered by the courts to dramatically cut its emissions. Chevron has 61% of its shareholders demanding emissions cuts. ExxonMobil just had 2 activist shareholders elected for the first time. And Wall Street Journal reporting that green finance is going mainstream, that more than $5 billion in bonds and loans are funding green initiatives every single day in the United States. And recently, the 2 biggest US banks pledged $4 trillion in climate-oriented financing over the next decade. As Jigar Shah, who's now with the Department of Energy, said, climate change is the largest wealth creation opportunity of our lifetime. We have to think about this in a whole new way. We can do this. We have the technology, we have the know-how, we just need the political will. So here's my headline for California for December 2030. If we do everything we know we can do starting today, that California becomes the first state in the nation to become net negative, kickstarting the nation and the world into equitable climate action. Thank you very much. I love your questions and comments.
Thank you so much, Ellie. What an inspiring presentation. I will invite everyone now to put their questions and comments into the chat or the Q&A, whichever works best for you. And in the meantime, I don't see any in there right now, but I know that we did ask people to respond to us when they registered. And one of the questions that I do have is, you mentioned the community energy. I think
community choice energy.
Community choice energy, so CCE. I don't believe we have that anywhere in Oregon, and I believe you mentioned there was like 24. What do you think it makes a difference if the utilities don't go in that direction? How important is that piece?
I think it's quite significant. In many ways, the electricity sector is the easiest sector to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in, because, especially today, because of the availability of solar and wind and geothermal and clean sources of energy. And so it really is a matter of political will. So in California, it actually stands for CCA, which is Community Choice Aggregation. It's how the energy is aggregated. We still use utility transmission. We still believe there's a very critical role for the major utilities on the bigger scale. But we also know that local government control means that you do it in the interests of the people and not first and foremost your shareholders. And we've seen that again and again here in California, where PG&E, for example, whose territory I live within, Pacific Gas and Electric, neglected for many years to invest in hardening infrastructure and updating it, and really focus first and foremost on shareholder return. But by doing that, we've had most of the devastating fires in Northern California over the past several years have been caused by actually faulty equipment. We also, because of drought and severely dry habitat, are susceptible to devastating fires, of course, with lightning strikes and other things that are naturally occurring. But the potential of CCAs has been great. It stimulates the market. It offers these alternatives. We believe that because of CCAs, that kickstarted PG&E and other utilities to do more on renewables. And some utilities are doing a great job on it. PG&E is offering more and more today. But being able to have local governments manage this is a great opportunity and a great alternative.
Yes, and getting everyone to work together, as you mentioned. The one good thing in Oregon is that we certainly have that 100% clean electricity bill now, so that will happen by 2030. So let's hope that that may help us a little bit here. But I see that we do have another question. Ellie, do you see that?
Yes, I can see it. It's from
okay.
Linda Kelly. Yeah, with the new technology being developed for geothermal, is there a movement to develop more geothermal baseload in California? And could this be a pivot for fossil fuel workers and technology? Possibly. That's a great question and suggestion. There's definitely looking for expanding geothermal energy and electricity as an option as we move to a clean energy economy, and potentially a way to transition oil and gas workers. One of the interesting challenges, we talk about a just transition, and there are studies that show clean energy can create in California hundreds of thousands of new jobs. But we have to be clear that current oil and gas jobs are highly technical. They include boiler makers and pipe fitters and other specialties that probably in the geothermal setting could be applied, but may not be equivalent to installing solar on my roof, which is relatively simple and lower paid jobs. So we can't just transition oil and gas workers to all forms of clean energy. One proposal that I've read is to have them play a big role in sealing orphaned oil and gas wells, which there are tens of thousands apparently, and many of those are leaking methane and other toxins, and getting them to help do that would be a huge step forward. We really look at it in 3 tiers. The people who are older, maybe we can help them retire early. The people in the middle parts of their careers, we transition them to similar jobs in a clean energy economy and work with business to provide that opportunity. And newer young people going into oil and gas, trying to get them not to do that at all so that they can go into other jobs that really help us secure a climate safe future.
Yes, and how true that is, that we could create so many more jobs in alternative clean sectors that would actually help our economy if we just get moving on this. Well, thank you so much, Ellie, for that wonderful inspirational talk. And I certainly hope that those of you that are participating will connect with Ellie, and let's endorse her Climate Safe California and see if we can make it happen in Oregon. Thank you again, Ellie.
Thank you, Diane. And I do hope that you all can adopt any aspects of this as you would like. You can use my slides, and we really welcome you to use it as you wish. So thank you again for the honor of being here today. Be well.
We do have another question here on methane. I regret that we need to get on to our next speaker, but Ellie, if there is time after our next speaker, I don't know if you have time to stick with us, but it's a question about methane.
Okay.
But we could answer that after we roll with our next speaker, if that's all right with you. But I understand if you need to move out, Ellie. We'll see if you're still with us. Thank you. Let's hear from Representative Pam Marsh. This is a pre-recording, and Representative Marsh hopes to join us at 12:30. She had another meeting, but wants to be with us today. Let's roll her pre-recording on 100% clean electricity.
Thank you so much, Diane, and thank you to everyone for having me. As noted, my name is Pam Marsh. I'm the state representative for House District 5, which is Southern Jackson County, right above the California line. I am deeply honored to be here today to talk with all of you about House Bill 2021, which set the state of Oregon on a course toward 100% clean electricity, and in a distinctly Oregon way. In a few minutes, I want to talk about specific components of the bill that I think are unique to us. But first, I want to provide just a brief operational overview of how it will all work. House Bill 2021 requires Oregon's 2 large investor-owned utilities, that is Pacific Power and PGE, and our independent electricity service suppliers, to provide 100% emissions-free electricity by the year 2040, with intermediary targets set along the way. So what does that mean? In a little less than 20 years, Oregon's electricity will be powered by energy sources that produce no greenhouse gas emissions. Certainly that will include hydropower, solar, and wind, as well as end-user strategies like energy efficiency and demand response. But it will also undoubtedly encompass energy sources still in development, like offshore wind. In fact, the bill's ambitious timeline should send a critical market signal to spur development of those new technologies. House Bill 2021 sets a clear linear, and predictable course toward 2040. Upon passage of the legislation, each utility will be required to develop a clean energy plan that will describe how the utility intends to achieve those new clean energy targets. The plans will set annual emission goals and describe the actions and investments to be implemented. That could include, for example, acquisition of non-remitting sources, end user strategies, new transmission infrastructure, retirement of existing resources, or any other actions that could be necessary to achieve the emissions targets. The Oregon PUC will review the plans to make sure that they align with our targets and serve the public good. Clean energy plans will be updated every 2 years. So enforcement of the effort toward 100% is pretty simple and straightforward. The Department of Environmental Quality will use its existing emissions monitoring system to track emissions. DEQ data then will be reported to the PUC, which will evaluate those numbers for consistency with the utility's clean energy plan. And if something goes off course, the PUC can use various strategies, including a temporary exemption from compliance if it is necessary to maintain system reliability, to meet demand in the case of resource variability, or to respond to cumulative rate impacts that exceed 6% of revenues, although those are certainly not anticipated. Both the utilities and the Citizens Utility Board believe that ratepayers will see no cost increases outside of normal fluctuations. This is largely due to the fact that renewable energy is increasingly the most economically sound investment choice. Simply put, we know that clean electricity is the best option for consumer pocketbooks. So that's the fairly straightforward structure of our path to 100% clean electricity. But I promised you earlier that this bill is designed in a uniquely Oregon way. Now I'd like to spend just a few minutes highlighting program components that benefit ratepayers, environmental justice communities, local jurisdictions, workers, renewable developers, and our local economies. To begin, we know that the transition to clean energy must support and empower our most vulnerable communities. Accordingly, House Bill 2021 requires each utility to establish community benefits and impacts advisory panels. Those panels will include individuals who represent the utility's customers, including members of environmental justice communities, which are defined in the bill as rural, coastal, tribal, BIPOC, low income, and other groups traditionally underrepresented in public processes. These consumer panels will advise the utility on a range of relevant issues, including, but not limited to, clean energy plan development, energy burden and disconnects, actions that can increase resilience, and the social, economic, and environmental co-benefits that can result from utility investments. So clearly, House Bill 2021 is good for consumers, and it is also good for communities. Green tariff programs that are created in the bill will enable local jurisdictions and those utilities to work together to design electricity programs for communities that want to accelerate their progress toward climate goals. These custom programs can be designed to target specific community priorities, including local ownership of energy sources, disaster resiliency, jobs, water savings, or to spur development of renewable infrastructure such as microgrids, storage, or other community-based projects. And House Bill 2021 is good for workers. Apprenticeship requirements and responsible contractor and labor standards will apply to any project over 10 megawatts to ensure fair wages and good health and retirement benefits for employees. The bill encourages project labor agreements and aims for 15% of work hours to be performed by BIPOC, women, veterans, or people with disabilities. And finally, House Bill 2021 sets a clear course toward local renewable energy development that will provide jobs and boost community economic vitality. House Bill 2021 is expected to spur more than 27 megawatts in new renewable energy by 2030. And that is over and above what would be produced under current regulations. That's enough energy to power 700,000 homes. And we want to make sure that a significant portion of that new development includes smaller community-based projects. House Bill 2021 takes 4 important steps toward that end. First, It requires utilities to address the costs and benefits of resiliency and community renewable projects as part of their clean energy plans. That analysis will be assessed and perhaps debated in a transparent and public setting when the PUC evaluates the utility's clean energy plans. Second, House Bill 2021 requires utilities to increase their purchase of energy from small renewable projects from 8% to 10% of their total energy load by 2030. Third, House Bill 2021 instructs the Oregon Department of Energy to conduct a study of small-scale and community-based projects to identify incentives or barriers to development. We need to know what the facts are on the ground so that we know how to spur and support projects. And last, but very much not least, House Bill 2021 establishes a $50 million community renewable energy project grant program to support the planning and development of community renewable energy and resilience projects that are 20 megawatts or less in size. Local governments, tribes, and consumer-owned utilities will be eligible to apply for funding for projects that have a direct benefit to the community. $50 million is a lot of money, and it will enable us to seed and support projects all over the state. But moreover, it will provide us with direct experience on the ground to help us understand, first, the multiple benefits that can accrue through local projects, and second, how to assign a dollar value to those benefits when we evaluate project feasibility. This experience and this vital information, further informed by the ODO study and the Clean Energy Plan mandates, should set the course for future community project development. I have to tell you, I was so proud to be a part of this historic legislation, and I was deeply humbled by the stakeholders who worked tirelessly to design this very clear blueprint toward the state's clean energy future. I suspect many of you were in that group. House Bill 2021 was developed through a collaborative process that included environmental justice organizations, ratepayer advocates, climate advocates, the renewable industry, labor, independent power producers, and the utilities themselves. In some cases, quite frankly, these were partners who had never sat down together before. But despite their disparate backgrounds, these stakeholders recognized the opportunity in front of us in 2021 to create a consensus path toward 100% that really reflects our state's values and priorities, a plan that is, at its essence, distinctly Oregonian. Finally, I want to share a very personal reflection about all this work. On September 8th of last year, the Alameda wildfire coursed through my district, destroying 2,500 homes and many businesses and displacing thousands, perhaps 6,000 to 8,000 people, many of whom were our most vulnerable residents, our aging people, our working people, our Latinx, Latino families. My primary mission in the 2021 session was to acquire resources to help this community just get a toehold on recovery. But even as I was advocating for those resources, I was compelled to look toward the future. And when I did, I saw, as I'm sure you see, a future with decreasing snowpacks, persistent drought, increasing temperatures, turbulent storms, all the clear signs of a deteriorating climate. And it was clear to me then, and it certainly is now, that if we fail to address those underlying conditions, we legislators will just be back in Salem year after year, begging for money to bail out impacted communities. So House Bill 2021 is an important step in this effort to build more resilient communities and to begin to mitigate the greenhouse gas emissions that are driving these horrendous conditions on the ground. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your passion for this work, and thank you for your partnership as we move forward.
Thanks to Representative Pam Marsh for all of that work. We do have time for a quick question. And we will need to direct that to Ellie Cohen. Pam Marsh, her meeting must have run over. Ellie, we had a question on methane and the importance of methane emissions And also it did refer to the decarbonization that is going to need to occur in buildings and transportation. Is there any piece of that? I know that's a three-pronged question. Any piece of that you would like to answer?
Yes, I did write an answer, but I want to be clear that the fastest way for us to slow down climate impacts right now is to slow down and cut and reverse the amount of pollution of methane and other super climate pollutants, they're called. Methane in its lifespan, which is 12 to 20 years, much shorter in the atmosphere than carbon dioxide, which can stay in the atmosphere for hundreds of years. But when methane is in the atmosphere, it is about 84 times more powerful of a warming compound than carbon dioxide. So if you're releasing lots of methane, it's like incredibly more powerful in the short term to accelerate climate change. Refrigerants, some refrigerants are thousands times more powerful, but even shorter lived. So by changing our refrigeration systems, our air conditioning, by shutting down natural gas production, there's some things we can do right away that will make an enormous difference to slowing the pace of climate change and giving us more time to address and solve it.
And then, thank you. We do have another question from someone about, you have worked a lot of your adult life working with partnerships.
Yes.
Do you have any suggestions for entities as they move forward to try to develop those partnerships that we need in order to address the climate crisis?
Yes, everything we do at the Climate Center is in partnership with others. In fact, on Friday, we are convening 20 nonprofits, the leading climate nonprofits in California, representing environmental groups and environmental justice organizations, to together find out what are the common bills that we would like to support for the 2022 legislative session. So I think partnerships are essential. I think no organization, no matter how big or small it is, will be successful in solving the climate crisis. We have to work together. We have to work across different diverse geography, diverse interests, and find the common ground. What's the real solution to that, or the real approach? Means we have to listen to one another. At the same time as we have to go fast, we have to go slow enough to listen to one another, to take the time to talk to one another, find those common ideas and work towards those in concert. It will be much more powerful, and we have a much better chance of accelerating that equitable climate action that we desperately need.
Well, thank you, Ellie. And I really regret that we can't get to those other questions. We've got lots of questions for you. It's because your presentation was just so inspiring.
Thank you.
But we do need to go now. So thank you, Ellie. And we are going to have a short word from 350 Deschutes. And also you will be presented with a survey. Please complete the survey. It will help us improve. Thank you very much. We hope to see you in the next panel, starting at 1 o'clock.
Hi, my name is Jeff Rollet. I'm a board member with 350 Deschutes. Every year, we offer the Go Clean Energy Conference, bringing our guests valuable content to help save this fragile planet and improve our quality of life. We'd like to continue to offer this conference for free, but we need your help. You can help by donating $10, $20, $50 or more. Just go online to 350deschutes.org/donate. Again, that's 350deschutes.org/donate. And go clean energy. Thank you so much.